We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast. The German news agency Transocean said to bring the broadcast.
Here's another late development, and this news keeps coming in as we're talking here. Here's other information just in from the...
Hello everyone, this is Sia. I am the head of security for MetroThamCon, and you can also call me Sanjo-chan on my website, sentakumedia.com. And today, for MetroThamCon's virtual day, I'm going to talk about the history of K-pop in 30 minutes or less, just depending on if I, control myself and not get into too much detail concerning what we're about to talk about, which is, of course, K-pop. So this panel is intended for those that have gotten into K-pop recently or just know, just the, bare minimum. Like, BTS is what we see on the screen. That's probably what y'all know about, but we're going to dig a little deeper just to give people an idea of how far K-pop has, come along, thanks to BTS, because BTS is right now the powerhouse of South Korea. And for this presentation, we're going to talk about how I discovered K-pop, and you'll see how far people have come as far as getting a hold of K-pop, because I know there's only one source of discovering K-pop now, but back in the day, I've been into K-pop since 2004, so I'll talk a little bit of how I got into it, considering, it was the early 2000s. And then we're going to talk about South Korea's leading record labels. So, like, you might have heard of SM Entertainment and YG Entertainment, and of course Big Hit, which houses BTS, but we're going to talk about a little bit more of what other record labels there are. And then we're going to go into fan club names and song recommendations and where to buy K-pop. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with how I got into K-pop, just to give, a little introduction about myself. So I'm into anime, of course. So my first go-to entertainment medium besides anime was J-pop, and the reason why I got into K-pop was actually thanks to J-pop. So of course I was just genuinely curious about K-pop to begin with, and I was told about Sotaiji, who actually used to have a band of his own in the early 90s called Sotaiji and Boys, before he became a solo artist, and his style of music changed completely because it was, 90s definition of pop back in the day, but now he's basically a rock alt rock artist right now. And like I said, I got into K-pop from J-pop, and that was because I watched a show that aired on the international channel back in the day called Revolution. I mainly watched it for J-pop, but they showed K-pop music videos as well. And then, of course, the network, rather, international channel, they changed the name to ACN TV, but it went off the air a few years later because, it was low, low in ratings and all that. And it was right when YouTube started. So, eventually, YouTube was going to take over that kind of, programming and rather than some. As they also aired anime too. They aired I think Black Heaven. I think that was a show that a lot of people recognize from the early 2000s, and they also aired Music Camp. Not Music Camp, but what's that show? Hey Hey Hey. I think that's a show that had live performances of J-pop artists. And also Music Camp, that's actually the name of a K-pop show, but we're going to talk about that a little later, so I apologize. And of course, YouTube, that's pretty much everyone's main medium of K-pop now. And of course, I was there when YouTube started, so that's where I got a lot of my videos after I moved away, because international channel was only available in a select markets. I used to live in Chicago, so that's where I'm from. But now I've been living here in Chattanooga for 15 years, but and when it went off the air, so it wasn't a big loss. But I got YouTube, so I'm fine. So yes, a lot of people nowadays, I'm sure you heard of BTS, maybe Psy, because I know Psy, we're going on almost 10 years since Psy was a hit. So that was kind of the gateway for BTS, Monster X, and Blackpink, and all the artists you know now. But we're gonna talk about a little bit more of these artists when we're talking about South Korea's leading record labels. So, of course, behind this picture, you see SM Entertainment as all of their artists they've had, I guess, as of the early 2010s. And SM has been around since '95, but it was started by Lee Suman, who was a solo artist himself. I think he was more of a trot artist, and he was a CEO up until like the early, like mid 2000s. But it's changed, as far as CEOs, they've had their share of several CEOs, past and present. So a lot of artists you may recognize from SM Entertainment includes NCT and their subunits 127U, Dream, and their Chinese subunit Wavy. Of course, there's EXO, Super M, which is basically a collaboration between NCT and EXO artists, and I think some SHINee members. And of course, there's Red Velvet, which is their current leading girl group, and TVXQ, which is their oldest group under the label, because they're originally 5 members, but due to unforeseen circumstances, they are now a 2-member group. And of course, we have SHINee, Super Junior, which is also their current second longest running group under the label, and then we have BoA, who has been with the label since the early 2000s. So she's been in the K-pop game, for a couple of decades now. And for those that have been into K-pop for a while, maybe been out of it, there's also memorable first generation groups such as HOT, Shinhwa, and STS. Now, HOT, they've long disbanded, but they've had like reunion performances. Same for STS. Actually, they had made a comeback under SM Entertainment a few years back. And Shinhwa, they're under their own label now. They've, off and on, they've released new songs. So if you're curious about any of those groups, you can check them out. And that's it for SM Entertainment. Next, we have JYP, which is their second biggest label in Korea. This was founded by Park Ji-young, or JYP himself, in 1997. Artists you might know now include Stray Kids, which is not really a brother-sister group, but if you like BTS, then Stray Kids has that similar sounding music to BTS. There's also GOT7, which is currently their longest running, they're getting there to as far as being their longest running K-pop group. And then of course there's 2PM, which is right now, I guess, their longest running group at the top there. But you also have Day6, their girl group Twice, and their newest girl group ITZY. And artists that you might recognize include 2AM, Wonder Girls, which disbanded about a few years ago, Miss A, GOD, which is like one of the first male groups under JYP. They were actually under Cetus HQ before JYP started the label, but they ended up joining his label, and they've released music off and on. But so technically, I guess they're still under JYP, listed under another one. But yeah, they're still somewhat active. And Rain, of course, he has his own record label, Rain Company, and he was one of the earlier solo artists for JYP. And Park Ji-young, she was popular in the late 90s as well. And moving on to YG Entertainment. Now, YG Entertainment, I know in the past year, going on 2 years now, they've had a rocky, couple of years. So, YG was founded by Young Hun Suk, who was actually one of the members of SOTAIGI, which I mentioned earlier in the panel. And right now, the CEO is Hwang Bo-kyung, who is the current CEO. After YG himself stepped down due to some unforeseen circumstances, which I'm not going to mention in this panel, as it's going to take up a lot of time and for other reasons. Artists that's currently housed under YG include Big Bang, which has been around since 2006, Blackpink, which is, they recently released their first full-length album, and there's Winner, iKON, and the newest boy group Treasure. And they go back to the days of One Time, which was Teddy. Teddy wrote a lot of YG Entertainment songs, and it's Junushan, which was also one of their biggest. Well, they're a duo. They're also one of the biggest artists back in the day, and there's also Big Mama, which was a female vocal group, and Weesung, who also goes by Real Slow nowadays, and Gummy and Seven. So, oh yeah, and Epic High, Psy, 21, and Lee High were like towards the early to mid 2010s. Like Epic High used to be under another label before they joined YG and they started their own label. And Psy, of course, he was under a different label, but he, basically brought the company, to, new heights because of Gangnam Style that was released in 2012. And 21 was also their biggest girl group under the label, but they disbanded a few years ago. That's YG Entertainment in a nutshell. And just to save some time for this panel, I have some honorable mentions. There's a few more that I could have added, but I'm just gonna touch like a lot of groups that you might have heard of beyond BTS and TXT under Big Hit. So I originally did this panel for Anime Blast back in about 4 or 5 years ago, and when I was working on this panel or Metrotham Con's virtual day, I realized that this list is out of date because we originally had a big 4 for the record labels, and Cube Entertainment was one of them. But I think now, if you want to confirm it, it will probably be Big Hit Entertainment. And as of recording this panel, they're actually going to acquire full ownership of Pleiades Entertainment. But just for this panel, we're just gonna keep it simple. So Big Hit Entertainment, which houses BTS and Tomorrow X Together or TXT. Then we have Jellyfish Entertainment, which houses Fix, Fairy Fairy, and Gugudan, which is their female group. And then Starship Entertainment has Monster X, which is pictured to your right, Gravity, and Woju Sonyo, or Cosmic Girls. And also for Cube Entertainment, we have B2B, Pentagon, CLC, and G-Idol. And for those that might have an idea of who G-Idol is, a couple of their members have done that song for KDA. So yeah, that League of Legends song. So yeah, that's where 2 of their members come from that group. And for DSP Media, we have Card in April. And DSP Media is actually one of the oldest record labels. Not really, I guess oldest as far as late 90s is concerned. So they're almost as old as SM Entertainment and DSP Media back in the day. They had Finkel, which is the girl group that Lee Hyori was in before she had a really successful solo career. And also there's Six Keys, which was once upon a time under YG for a couple of years before they went separate ways. It was basically they were gearing for a comeback after being absent for a long time because they were also really big during the days of HOT, which is what I will be talking about in a little bit. So that's your bare minimum record labels to know about. That's houses some of your favorite groups. So now we're going to talk about fan club names. So we're going to get a little deep into the K-pop fandoms and all that. Like I said, I'm just going to keep it basic so that way I won't overwhelm anyone. So this picture you see is of a concert held in Japan of Toho Shinki or TVXQ. And Toho Shinki is their Japanese name of the group. And TVXQ roughly stands for the Rising Gods of the East, and they've been around since 2003, so they're one of SM Entertainment's longest running K-pop groups, even though they've had a change of members for reasons that are actually unfortunate, but that's something to look up at your own discretion. But yeah, so their fan club colors are red, and I think it's another color. I think if it's in Japan it's one color, but I think mostly it is red. But behind the colors, we also have their names. So, going for the male groups, we have HOT, which is High Five of Teenagers, and they're one of SM Entertainment's first boy groups. And considering like at the time this was like new concept to South Korea because they were still trying to find their footing as far as pop culture because they were back then and still are a conservative country, so groups like HOT or Taijin Boys was kind of surprising for a lot of older people, but a lot of younger Koreans, they embraced um a lot of these groups from the mid 90s moving forward up until now. So it's like they treat they look up to a lot of these idols, especially if they promote positivity for Korean youth. So HOT, they kept it simple and just called them their fan club Club HOT, or White Angels, and of course their color was white. And TVXQ, which is Cassiopeia, which is a what they described, how they describe it is that it's a constellation that represents a W. And apparently when you type TVXQ on the keyboard, apparently it also is a W, basically a W shape. So there's really deep meaning behind the name of Cassiopeia, and also for almost all of these fan club names, there's a deep meaning behind these. So like if you squint, you can figure it out. So, oh, that makes so much sense. So for BTS, we have ARMY, which is, I'm sure a lot of you call yourselves that if you're a big fan of BTS. But ARMY, what it stands for, it means Adorable Representative MC for Youth. Again, it's self-explanatory too, because they are adorable representative MCs for the youth. And actually, they're kind of, when you think about it, they're actually the modern day HOT, because actually one of their songs is actually a low-key cover of HOT's Warrior's Ascendant, which I'll recommend towards the end of this panel. And so moving on, so we got Monsta X. They call their fans Mon Bébés, which is stands for Mon, which is French for my, and Bebe, which is baby. So they call them My Babies. And then for GOT7, they call their fans I Got 7, or Agassi, which means baby bird. And for the female groups, going back to early 90s, well, mid 90s, it's SES. They call their fans friends. That's it. Just keeping it simple. But for Blackpink, they call their fans Blinks. Twice call their fans Ones. Cosmic Girls, or Woju Sonyo, they call their fans Ujungs, which means friendship in Korean, but it's also abbreviated for spaceship. Again, if you squint, it makes sense considering their group name. And then for Girls' Generation, they call their fans Sowons, which is Sowon in Korean, but it also means wish in English. So, see, like if you look closely, these make so much sense. So, there you go. And also, if you are a hardcore member of one of these fan clubs, on these music shows, as you see on your left, there's several of them. It used to be 4, but over the past decade, have been more added to for your selection. As you see on your left hand corner, there are several music shows that you can watch either on YouTube or on Viki, which requires a monthly subscription, which is like no more than $6, which I recommend if you also interested in K-pop dramas. So we have Mnet, Inkigayo, Mnet Countdown, Inkigayo, Music Bank, Music Core, Show Champion, The Show, Pops and Soul, and Simply K-Pop. And actually, both the last 2 shows are actually on Arirang TV. The last one in particular apparently is all in English. So if there's a language barrier, then you can enjoy that show as well. And also, if you live in Korea, not live in Korea, but if you visit Korea, if you want to see these artists perform live, you have to have their latest CD that has a fan club card, and if you can read Korean or find instructions online, you can figure out, what they, how to get into recordings of these shows, and you have to be a member of their group as well. So yeah. Also to your right, I also talked a bit about light sticks. So these are unofficial light sticks you see on your right, but there are official light sticks for groups as well. So if you are really into these groups, they do have, chances are they'll have an official light stick. So get ready to give up your life savings if you want to, go all out and support your group. And also, these are also similar to, I'm sure, like for those who are into Japanese pop. They are reminiscent of the light sticks they have for a lot of their when they support their idols like AKB48, but they actually went above and beyond and added a lot of these bells and whistles to it. But these are unofficial light sticks onto your right. But yeah, again, they have official light sticks where they offer them at a decent price. Well, decent depending on how well first you are into the fan club of your favorite group. So that's a little bit about the fan clubs and what they entail. And now, if you are just curious about K-pop even more from what I've told you about, I have song recommendations. So to your left, there are several song recommendations that I brainstormed between me and my friend who goes by MC Panda. We have HOT's Warrior's Ascendant, which I mentioned earlier, which is similar to BTS's No More Dream. That was like their version of the song back in the day, but I think BTS was inspired by that song. And then we have TVXQ again, which is Melodic, which is one of their biggest hits as a 5-member group. And we have Girls' Generation, which is You Think. I know we have a few other songs by Girls' Generation, but this is like a good song to get into if you're new into K-pop. This is, I guess, what you would call a B-side. And then we have Kara's Mr., Chinese Ring Ding Dong, BAP's Warrior, which was a hit about almost 10 years ago. I think it was like in 2012 when it came out. It was just like their debut song, and it received a huge amount of praise from the K-pop community because it's just it was very explosive. It was this very explosive debut for the group, and unfortunately they disbanded recently, but I still recommend you check that out. And also, to finish it off, we have Monsta X's Hero, which is their debut song as well. And Monsta X are one of the current biggest groups next to BTS and EXO outside of Korea. Now, just where do you get all these? So K-Pop Store in USA, I'm sure you've been looking at that and curious as to exactly where it is. So yes, it's an actual store that's 2 hours south of Chattanooga. So if you are itching for a road trip, and then that's a place to go to actually buy CDs. And I will tell you that because of the store, it's been like ages since I've ordered an actual CD online. So like if I just wanted a K-pop CD, I would just drive up there and get it and then come back. And there's a lot to do in that area. That's that area, Doraville in the neighboring Gwinnett County, and that's basically a Koreatown. So you can go to Iron Age for some Korean barbecue, and then you can go to the H Mart to get some Korean snacks and food. Like it's a good getaway from the weekend, if you feel safe doing it, considering the times that we're in now. But K-Pop Store in USA, they do have an online store, which is kpopstoreinusa.com. And like I said, you can go to Doraville now if you wanted to, but they do have limited hours due to COVID-19. Just so you know, but I would check their Facebook pages for updated hours. And if you just want BTS CDs, maybe a Blackpink CD, Walmart also has them, and Target. They just have like the current like Billboard ranking albums right now. But you can't, if you wanted something that was like a slightly obscure band like Fairy Fairy, you had to go elsewhere or online, which includes Yes Asia, K-Pop Mart, K-Pop Town, or Music Korea. And also, it's important to note that purchases from these online stores, they do go towards the official Korean music chart, which includes Hanto. And also, if you are just, if you don't want to spend a whole lot of money on one album, you can check out these artists, especially the song recommendations, on Apple Music, Spotify. And if you want to go above and beyond, you can go to Melon, which is the Korean streaming and download music site. But you have to go to YouTube just to figure out how to use it, because their app is only available if you change your settings, localization settings, or create an account that's outside of the US. Again, this is out of my time limit, so I would recommend going to YouTube just to figure out how to do all these. So lastly, to finish off our history of K-pop in 30 minutes, you might want to go to Korea one day. So I'm gonna play this little video of our trip to Korea last October. So I spent a week in Korea. Like I didn't think this was gonna happen, but we went to Korea. We originally gonna go to Japan, but we ended up going because it's much cheaper. And my friend and I, as you can see in the reflection, we saved up $1,600 between the both of us. And my friend, she's been out of the country before, so she has a passport, but it cost me about $150 to get one, and I had to wait about 3 weeks to get it back. You just need your birth certificate and the minimum amount of money to get it, and you have to do it at least early. So I did mine last March, and I got it back in early April, so that was plenty of time. And the trip itself, with tickets, round trip, plane tickets and a hotel, was $1,600, and I came to Korea with 1,000,000 won, which is roughly 1,000 US dollars, and I came back with 400. So that's how affordable everything is in Korea. Like, I think I spent most of my time buying junk food in Korea. I know bibimbap was one of them, but it was delicious. It was so worth it. And they do have like several 24-hour 7-Elevens and other 24-hour convenience stores like within a block from each other. So like you're all set. You don't even need to bring any snacks with you on a trip. So yes, I recommend going to my website, which is sentakumedia.com, to read of how my adventure in Korea, Seoul rather, went down. And also, if you enjoy this panel, be sure to check out my website, sentakumedia.com, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sentaku Media. And I'm also on Twitch, which right now, as of this, I'm streaming Shenmue 2 and Final Fantasy X. So if you want to see me play these games, and be sure to check it out Thursday and Friday nights. Of course, if my schedule changes, social media is the best way to keep in touch. And lastly, I am part of MetroThamCon, so if you see me around, be sure to say hi. I know things are going to be a little different for a while, so if things things change for the better come the last weekend of April, the beginning of May, I will see you then, or otherwise I'll see you at MetroThamCon, Fender Day, or any other events around Chattanooga. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.